For this advanced project, I'm here in Corel Photo Paint X6. To start with, I'm going to open the Connect Docker. I'll expand out the Docker quite large so we've got a good sized display area. You can see here that the X6 content is selected, so I'm going to type in Japan, Japan. The image that I'm looking for has a slight oriental flavour, not too much, just a little. And as we scroll down, in fact I'm going to go with this image here. So I'll open the tray, so click Show Tray, and I'm going to create a brand new tray. And we'll call this Poster Project. And I'll go ahead and drag that down onto the tray. And I'm going to collapse the tray again because I want to find some more images that I have in a folder on my desktop. And in fact we'll turn on vectors and folders and turn off bitmaps. I'm going to simply double click because I want to see the folders on my desktop. Inside of this folder here, Scott, I've got 3 CDR files. That's why I had to turn on vector. So show the tray, finger on control, select that one, and select that one and that one, click and drag and place them both down on the tray. I'm just going to close that back up again and we'll close the Connect Docker down for the time being. I'll select my first image, drag and drop into Photo Paint. We'll maximize the window and again we'll just collapse the tray and then F4 on my keyboard and we're ready to start working. I also want to turn on the display of rulers, so under the View menu I'll turn on rulers. They can be quite handy also in Photo Paint. Now Control C and Control V creates a duplicate of the background. I'll rename that to Photograph. And one thing I want to do is just lock out the background. So I'm going to select the background, turn on the lock, and also I'm going to turn off the display of the background. So now when I select my main image and move it away, you can see we have that checkered background. One thing to bear in mind is if you do click on the grey area, by default the background becomes selected as the active object. So always be sure that you've got the object that you want to work on selected. I'm now going to apply some effects, and the first one is Effects, Camera, and we're going to apply a lens flare. Come straight down to the Raise tab and I'm going to go with a preset. So select and I'm going to choose 50 by 300 zoom. Slide this over to the right hand side because I want to set the origin. So click this little plus up here in the right hand corner and that causes the flare effect to come down diagonally. And you can see the little flares there. It looks absolutely brilliant. Click OK. Now the next effect that I want to apply is a photo filter lens. So I'm going to come up to Object, Create, New Lens, and I'm going to select a photo filter and rename this to Pink Photo Lens. Let's click OK. And by default the lens is red, so we'll just click the little color drop down and this light color pink here, we're going to select that. I want maximum, preserve luminosity and click OK. And you can see our new pink photo lens there. I want to create another lens effect. Again, Object, Create and New Lens. This time I'm going to create a pixelate lens. Rename and click OK. And I just want to slide the dialog over and I'm going to select Radial. Now the effect will be from the center and you can see the radial effect there. However, I want to reposition the origin. So select the little plus, click up in the top right hand corner there. It's a great effect. Now the values that I've previously tested with are 22 and 47 and 53. Let's click OK. And that's really quite spectacular, isn't it? What I'd like to do now is save. It's always a good idea to pick the right point to save. We're about to resample, meaning we're going to lower the quality of our original design. So up to Image, choose Resample, and I want the width of this image to be 250mm wide, so 250 wide, and I want the height to be 300. The only way we can achieve that is by turning off the Maintain Aspect Ratio option. And then I'll type in 300. I want to stay with a 300 DPI resolution for professional print, so let's click OK. And for my last stage, I'm going to export this as a TIFF file. So up to File, come down to Export, and we'll come and choose the TIFF option. So select the file type TIFF, and you can see I've saved one before. So I'll just double click on the one I've previously saved, double click, yes to overwrite. Now it says all objects will be merged with the background in the exported file. What that means is that all of the objects that we have sitting here in the Object Manager, they will be flattened into a single image inside of that TIFF file. Click OK, and let's move on. For this next stage of our project, we're going to work in CorelDRAW. So I've gone ahead, opened CorelDRAW, I'm creating a new document. I've called it Poster, the same size that we just resampled to in PhotoPaint, 250 by 300. We're working in CMYK, 300 DPI. Let's click OK. And the first thing I want to do is bring the image we've just created in as a background to our page. So double click on the page border, under Document, come down to Background. You can see the options here. Choose Bitmap, click Browse, and this is the image we want to use. So double click. And make sure Print and Export Background is also selected so that when we eventually output our final result, the background is a permanent part of the output. Now the background is set, I can't select it, it's completely uneditable. Now I'm going to go ahead and open the Object Manager, Tools, Object Manager, and I need 3 layers in total. So I'll add 2 more layers, and the first layer, I'm going to go ahead and rename that to Background, and the next layer I'm going to call Body Text, and then the third layer we'll call that Title Text. Now I want to select my background, and before I move any further I'm going to create a rectangle the perfect size of my page. The easiest way to do that is to actually double click on the rectangle tool. So just double click and automatically you have a rectangle the right size. F4 on my keyboard to zoom into all objects, and I'm going to just grab my eyedropper tool and I'm going to sample one of the pink colours here. That one there looks nice. And I'm going to fill this rectangle with that pink colour. Then I'll right click on the no colour well, and then I'm going to select the transparency tool. Click and drag at the bottom up toward the top, and we'll create a transparency. Now always remember that the colour black is completely transparent, the colour white is opaque. So I don't want to be completely opaque at the bottom there, so I'm going to select a grey and drag and drop to the bottom of the transparency tool, and that gives a nice piece of transparency there. Now if I delete the object, you can see the difference. Control Z, undo. That looks really great, doesn't it? Now I'm going to come across and rename the rectangle to Pink Fade, just so that we know what it is. And now I want to create a white border or frame, if you like, around the outside. To do that, I'm going to come to Window, Dockers, and select the Object Coordinates Docker. This is a great docker for creating any shape object and perfectly placing that object. Now to understand how this works, first of all we need to understand the coordinates of our design. This top left hand corner has an XY coordinate of 0 for the X and 300 for Y. On the right hand side, 250 for X and again 300 for Y and so forth. If I select the rectangle that we already have created there, automatically those values will appear in the docker here. So we can see the size is 250 by 300. At the moment the object origin is center, so that's the coordinates for center. If I select top left, as you can see, 0 for X, 300 for Y. So to create the frame I'm going to create 4 rectangles. My first rectangle is going to use the X and Y for the upper top left of the rectangle. I want it to be 250 wide because that's the width of the page, but only 7 millimeters tall. So 7 and click Create Object. I now want one at the bottom of the page. So this time the bottom lower left of my rectangle is my origin point. And if I just scroll down a little, you can see that the Y is 0 and the X is 0. So I need to change this coordinate to 0. Same dimensions, click Create Object. Now one for the left hand side. So again, upper left for my object origin. And I'll need to go back to 300. And we're just going to change the dimensions this time to only 7 millimeters wide, but 300 high, because 300 is the height of my page. 300, and click Create Object. One more over on the right hand, so we'll just click upper right as the object origin. Now we want the X to be 250 because that's the width of the page. Same size object, and click Create Object, and we're done. So what I want to do now is select all of the objects. So Control A on my keyboard, and then finger on Shift to deselect that background pink rectangle we have over the top. I'm now going to weld everything together. So click Weld, fill everything with the color white, and then right click to remove the outline. And last of all, I'm just going to close down the object coordinates docker because we won't be using that anymore. The frame was the final element comprising all of our background. So I'm going to rename the curve to Frame, and I'm going to lock the background layer. By locking the background, I can't accidentally click now and move any of these components around. We'll collapse the background, and I'm going to select the body text layer.